Hello guys, it's me, the Tank NX here, and today I'm actually remaking an old video, just like the video about the tank committee and the remake I did about Little Willie. Basically, there are a lot of mistakes pointed out by the same person actually, Die Panzerkanon, in the video on the Leichter Kampfwagen 1, 2, and the Stridsvagn M21 and M2129. So yeah, I'd just like to apologize for that mistake, and here I am remaking the video. So let's just get started with Germany's whippets. So here we got the Leichter Kampfwagen. It's a 7-ton tank. It has a 3-man crew with 8 to 14 millimeters of armor, armed with one MG08 machine gun. It has an 8 to 11 mile per hour top speed and a 70-kilometer operational range. It was designed by Joseph Vollmer, who designed basically all of Germany's World War I tanks, and was based off a Daimler car chassis. Two prototypes were made by a 1918 built as basically an experimental cavalry tank, but it really wasn't intended to be actually used or produced. It was really only built to test ideas for the future LK2, which is what Germany actually wanted for a light tank. And onto the LK2 itself. It was a 910 tank with 8 to 14 millimeters of armor. It was armed with a 3.7 centimeter gun after the 5.7 millimeter, which is too powerful. Though tank cap version was also tested with an MG08. It had a 9 to 11 mile per hour top speed and a 42 mile operational range. It's basically just an upgraded model of the LK1 design. Only 2 LK2s were completed by 1918. It was supposed to be basically Germany's Renault FT, their main light tank, and an order for 580 was placed, which was raised to 800 and later 1385, though the armistice obviously put an end to that. It was really it's not even their whip. I know I called it Germany's whip as almost like a joke, but you can see that it's basically like a whippet, right? The same tracks and stuff, but it has a turret. To be fair, that is a pretty major change, rotating turret, but a fully rotating turret is pretty big, but like that's basically what this is. Plus, it's armed for more than a machine gun. And now onto the Stridsvagn M21. So after World War I, Sweden, who had basically stayed out of the conflict, basically bought parts for 10 Leichter Kampfwagen 2s in secret to basically kickstart the tank forces because, basically, it was actually ahead of, most other countries because what other countries did was basically you had the root of a lot of countries which were, hey, look at these Renault FTs that France can't really afford to keep much of, so they're either scrapping a lot of them, sending them to colonies, or selling them abroad. So let's buy some FTs. Or they'd basically buy some British heavy Mark 4s or 5s like Japan did. Sweden decided to go with a much different route. They bought 10 of these LK2 prototypes, which were the exact same thing. They were an LK2, just armed with the Swedish machine guns out of an MG08. They had a 10 mile per hour speed and armor ranging, wildly from 4 to 14 millimeters depending where. With a 3.4 man crew, which is probably too much for this vehicle. It was a decent vehicle for the time, to be fair. Being used all the way up until World War II. It never saw combat and was put out of service just short of the war in 1938. Onto its upgraded version. In 1921, 5 M21s were basically rebuilt and improved. They're armed with a 37mm gun or 2 machine guns. 37mm guns, those are pretty good. It had it had external lighting, a new alternator, and a better engine. However, due to being obsolete, they were still all put out of service in 1938. One M2129 is in the Muster Tank Museum, and another one has been restored at the Swedish Axvalli Tank Museum. Probably pronounced that wrong. On to the final assessments. So the LK1 was, it served its purpose fine. It was just a prototype for Germany to familiarize itself with the concept. Then the LK2 would have actually been a pretty good World War I light tank. It's definitely inferior to the FD-17, but it would have probably been better for the Germans than the A-7Vs. So, if we had like 20 A-7Vs, let's say they made like 40 LK2s. If they were just armed with a 3.7mm gun, they could actually be pretty effective. Or, sorry, 37mm gun, not 3.7, jeez. But, the war ended just too soon for them to see any service. The German industry, by the end of the war was really failing, and it probably wouldn't be able to produce them very efficiently anyway. They did serve for the basis of Sweden's first tank, though, and Sweden was, ahead of the time, like we previously discussed. It's the Stridsvagn M21 and its upgraded version basically helped Sweden become familiar with the concept of tank, plus, boosting their armor force by giving them one. And this experience did prove pretty necessary and beneficial, as during World War II, Sweden had several decent tank designs, such as the Stuart M42. In general, though, these tanks basically varied wildly in how successful they were. I don't know why war was cut out there, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and this is the Tank Index out. See you next time.